Hey, what's up you guys? Bob Smith from Smith Taekwondo and Pro Sport Kickboxing. This is Hawaii's largest martial arts center, and I'm coming to you talking about Krava Maga. I had a young lady that trained with us for the past couple of years before she was getting ready to go to college. And she's going to a West Coast school now, and she found a Krava Maga club on base, or on the campus. And she was told by her Krava Maga instructor that if she were doing a gun disarm and the gun fell to the ground, that she should just run. Well, that instructor should be kicked in the nuts. Because if you think that that's a practical theory for you, you need to look at most recently the Parkland school shooting in Florida, the Aurora school shooting in Chicago that just took place, or any school shooting or business shooting in which a person had to run away from a gun when the bullet goes an average of 1,200 feet per second at an extremely high amount of force. And your instructor tells you that your best advice is to run. Well, you should run from that instructor. You should find a better club, someone who actually has some experience. Now, I know that a lot of times people are going, oh, Krav Maga, Israeli martial art, oh my God, Israeli self-defense. And what does that mean exactly? Most of the Krav Maga instructors in the country are martial arts school owners like myself, but unlike myself, they don't have any real military experience or real experience in anti-terrorism. I was the site lead instructor for the Department of Defense Anti-Terrorism Training Center here in Hawaii. I have worked in that field for the past nearly decade, dealing strictly with CQB, active shooters, and a variety of those scenarios. So I can tell you that all the gun disarms that are being done and taught in Krava Maga, I've done a lot of them. And a lot of the gun disarms are great. They are really great. But the mindset that's being taught is almost cult-like. It's, oh, Krava Maga, it's Israeli self-defense. It's the only way that they deal with terrorism all the time. Well, you could say that about Taekwondo. And I don't mean the strip mall Taekwondo where you have some lady or some guy who's 50 pounds overweight with badges all over his uniforms insisting that you call him Ultimate Supreme Grand Master. I'm talking about old school Taekwondo. Taekwondo, the killing art. Imagine, just for a second if you will, you're in a struggle for your life against someone who has presented a knife or a firearm. We'll say a firearm. And you fell into that 1% category. Now I'm going to say 1%, and some Krav Maga instructors go, oh, I can do it every time, I can do it every time. And I'm going to call bullshit on that. You fall into that 1% category where you actually were close enough to get your hands on that firearm. You were actually close enough to do so. And you actually did perform a gun disarm. And the gun fell to the ground. What kind of a mindset was that guy in the first place? If he could point a firearm at you? Probably that he doesn't care about you. He doesn't care if you live or die. And now that the gun has fell on the ground, you look at the gun, you look at him, you both process really quickly what's going to happen, and you decide to take off. You don't think he's going to pick that gun up and shoot you in the back? Years ago, Utah State Trooper came up with a drill called the Tuller drill. And basically what he did was he, through research and development and analysis, lots of analysis, he determined that you can cover 21 feet in a second. 21 feet in a second. So while you're turning around to run away, it takes him a second to bend over to pick up that gun, raise it, and start shooting at you or anybody else who's around in the back. And now what you've done is you've created such a large reactionary gap that you no longer have any chance of survival. What you need to do is understand that you need to fight. And that's what you were doing in the first place when you initiated that gun takeaway. Now, fighting could be just throwing down, bare knuckle. It could be a mobility kill, which is what I tell students. Create a mobility kill, break that knee, crush that ankle, snap the, or crush the superficial nerve on the outside of the instep. Just stomp on it. Break that knee, kick him in the balls. And once you've dropped that person, you need to get that gun away from them. There is no military unit anywhere in the world that allows someone who's on the ground to lay next to a weapon. There is no intelligent police officer anywhere who, after he shoots the person's got the weapon close to them, they don't sit there and say, okay, they're good, I'm going to just leave the weapon there. Or they come up and they kick the weapon away like you always see in the movies. Please don't kick the weapon. If you're that person, please don't kick the weapon. If you are not securing the weapon, that weapon has a very good chance, very high probability of being used on you again. So pick that weapon up. If you are fighting, and again, I emphasize you need to spar. You need to understand what it feels like to get hit. You need to understand what it feels like to hit someone, to hit a target, a moving target, and you need to be able to interact back and forth with someone and see what's going to happen, their reaction to your action and vice versa. Because simply because you took a CrossFit class and Krava Maga, CrossFit workout, extreme, doesn't mean that it's a real anti-terrorism training course. Doesn't mean that it's a real firearms training course. It doesn't mean any of that. So when somebody tells you to run, what you need to do is run from that school, because that person doesn't have any idea what they're talking about. And if you're training with firearms in today's martial arts, in today's society, in this country, if your instructor isn't teaching you about firearms, find another school. There are way too many instructors out here that are these ultimate supreme grandmasters. Grandmaster Kwanjandim, super grandmaster, levitates over air, and all he needs to do is touch you and you're going to have a heart attack. And we see this on Facebook and Instagram all the time, these bullshito martial artists. But if you're not fighting and you're not sparring and you're not understanding how the relationship that takes place between two individuals who are intent on hurting each other, you are doing yourself a disfavor. And if your instructor is telling you that simply because they have so much rank, they can't even spar anymore because they might kill somebody because they're too deadly, run. If they tell you, oh, don't touch your gun, just run away from that school. If they're telling you that all you need to do is one punch, you know, often Krava Maga guys, they like to make the leaky tire sound. They don't even know how to punch correctly. Elbows up here and they're like, zzz, zzz, and that's their punch. And every Krava Maga scenario that I've ever seen, the scenario ends with them throwing a technique. Like that punch is going to stop the fight. It's not true. I don't care what they tell you, it's not true. Groin kicks won't always stop the fight. They won't. You have to have a follow-up technique. You have to do those techniques and drill them. You have to understand how to move with your partner. But when these guys are telling you one back fist, oh, back fist, will take care of the problem, or zzz, shh, shh, punch, and then they walk around like this and they posture. Come on, you guys, come on, real life. More likely than not, they have no clue what they're talking about. Now, I know some good Krava Maga instructors out there, and I know a majority of flakes who call themselves Krava Maga instructors. But I see stuff all the time on the internet all the time. Even guys who have these big websites, and they're saying shit that I'm just like, that's not true. And when they do, they give it away that they have never been in a real life and death situation. They have never done it with a live firearm. I have. I've disarmed live firearms. I've been in situations where I've had to take control of someone with a firearm. I've done dozens of disarms against DoD personnel with simunition rounds, which are FX rounds, or really powerful paintballs. And they hurt. They'll break the skin up close. We have a 5-foot rule that you can't get within 5 foot of somebody. And obviously if they're within 5 feet of me and I'm grabbing the gun, that's way inside the safety zone because those rounds are that dangerous. But anyway, if you come across a Krava Maga instructor and they tell you, if you drop the gun, just run away from that school. Bob Smith, blood makes you related, and loyalty makes you family.